Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our next panel, which will focus on mobile point of sale. We have two excellent panelists, and I will let them introduce themselves and provide a bit of their background and experience for you.
Good morning. My name is Tad Wilson. I'm a partner at Toshiba. Most of you are probably wondering what that means. Our business was the legacy IBM point of sale business, so the number 4 player about the number 1 player, and that's who we are. I focus on people that sell lots and lots of stuff, so the Walmarts, the Krogers, the Costco's, as opposed to things like Chipotle and Starbucks or Apple that sell one thing at a time. So we're going to have some interesting conversation about the high volume side of retail on this panel.
Good morning, my name is Curtis Savalos. I'm the CEO of Gabri Incorporated. We have a new technology by the name of Digits, and it is basically a security encrypted format for purchasing with your fingerprint. With a new kid on the block, we just released it publicly about 3 months ago, and we're past our alpha stage and actually blazing into the beta stage with quite a few partners and a lot of interested payment and security and customers, if you will.
Great. Thanks, Curtis. I want to tell a quick story before we get started. Before we present these panels, we have a quick phone call, and I got to get to know these two gentlemen over the phone, and we were talking about different things that we want to talk about. And so me, in my very legally blonde way, said, well, I live in LA, and I know mobile point of sale is really taking off, because when I go through the Starbucks drive-through lane, I notice nobody hands over cash or card anymore. They hand over their phone. And at that point, our esteemed panelists said, yeah, that's great, but that's not really mobile point of sale. And it was a little embarrassing, right? But it actually facilitated a very interesting discussion on what is MPOS, because it does mean different things to different people and certainly to consumers. So I'd like to turn it over to our two panelists to talk about what they think MPOS means.
Okay, so just for a little more context on the comment, we didn't say it wasn't MPOS. It's just that that wasn't the full picture for MPOS. It's very interesting coming from the traditional point of sale side. A lot of what you guys refer to as point of sale as a space, to me, is payments. And point of sale is a lot of the transactional logic that actually leads up to how much do I as a consumer owe you, the retailer. And so when you're talking about MPOS, it's doing that full range of scan, beat, total, tender on a mobile device. It could be a consumer mobile device, it could be a store furnished mobile device, it could be in the store, it could be away from the store, but there's a broad range of things that come into MPOS. And it's not new. This is one thing that I want to emphasize. People have been doing this for close to a decade through consumer furnished devices, a little newer, but retailer furnished devices. This has been going on for a while. So we're going to talk about that a little more and add some context there.
Mobile payments is a very dear thing for me. I invented Digits, and it came about 2.5 years ago, where I was sitting in a line at Walmart, as we all at one point have been, and there was an 87-year-old woman that was going through the checkout, and she couldn't remember her PIN number for her card. She tried 4 different cards. I actually only had 3 things in my cart, which I was trying to get out of there in November, and she had a full basket of things, and she couldn't remember anything. And I don't know if she had an episode. I tried helping her. I felt so bad for this woman. And the POS system at that particular register was broken that day. So it didn't do the job that it was supposed to do, and they had to manually remove every single item and void each one by one instead of the entire transaction. Sat there for 20 minutes. I felt so bad for this woman. They had to call her son, and he came. But I walked away from that going, there has to be a better way. And I looked at MPOS there, and it said to me, well, it's not at the register. It's really not it's not in the wallet. And I said, there's got to be an easier way for MPOS. And I came up with this thing with, well, why not biometric? I mean, the safest and easiest way and secure way would be to use a unique fingerprint with each and every consumer, where it can tie itself back to, as Ted mentioned, to pay the issuer or the company for those goods immediately and safely. And at the same time, it's going to create a better and pleasurable experience, especially when you shop, of getting through. And it's a trickle-down effect, as I mentioned to another gentleman the other day, is that the quicker that experience goes through with the MPOS, it's going to sell more products, it's going to create more jobs, and it's going to affect the economy in a very positive way.
Excellent, thank you. Let's talk for a moment about how your respective companies occupy the mobile space. Tad, tell me a little bit about Toshiba's role in retail.
So we would occupy it two ways. One would be on the application side. Lots of retailers have said we don't want to design a separate application for mobile, particularly if it's in the store. So we'll leverage what we have in the existing point of sale and extend that. Some clunkiness there. Legacy assets are always a lot less cool than the new stuff, but you've got to make them work. We also occupied a bit from the hardware side. So Toshiba, most people know Toshiba as a consumer device company. So laptops, televisions, in Japan it's rice cookers. They also sell nuclear reactors. It's a broad range of products. But from the device side, we're engaged there from tablets, from wearables, but we tend to be a little bit agnostic because the devices that are in play in retail now are totally different from the ones that are going to be in play 2 years from now. And if you wind the clock back 2 years, there's also a totally different set. So our focus is primarily on the application space, but we do in fact offer some devices.
All right. Curtis, tell me a little bit about your new product, the thumbprint purchase.
Digits is very unique to the fact that it works as a 72-point randomly generated security protocol where the customer basically purchases with their fingerprint and it gets encrypted, goes back to the profile, and it's back-end based on a profile where the customer has already added their fingerprint to their credit file or their bank account or their credit or whatever the payment method is. It's on their profile. We look at that with the 72 points. As long as it matches at 91% or better, the authorization comes from the issuer themselves or from the bank or from the credit card company, and then gives the authorization back again. After that transaction is finished, it changes to another 72 randomly generated positions or points, if you will, minutia points. Basically what I did was I took a map of 200 million minutia, blanket if you will, placed it over a fingerprint, and then we took those 72 points by an algorithm based on distance and gave them a digital code, and then added that to the profile on the back end, and then once it comes through and marries, it happens just like a regular credit card authorization, which makes it a lot cleaner because a fingerprint can't be duped. And inside our reader itself, we have an LFD, which is a live fingerprint detector, and all it is a laser heat emitter signature that will detect up to 2 millimeters into the skin to make sure it is a real fingerprint and not tape, Play-Doh, plastic, or a dead finger, if you will, because that is the reality of it. I mean, criminals will always find a way. They'd probably cut off a finger and try to use a fingerprint, and even if they microwave it, it won't go to the same temperature as what a real live finger would be.
Is that based on the actual test?
Oh, gosh. I am Colombian, so.
That is probably the best answer I have heard since I got here. So tell me, to implement this technology, would a retailer need to, purchase some new equipment? Does it integrate into existing MPOS systems?
It's an interesting question. When we started this whole process 2.5 years ago, we made a decision, conscious decision, we didn't want to go into the hardware business. as time progressed, we saw the fact of the matter that not only can our application or integration of our encryption be added to any different type of security measure, not only just payments, but law enforcement, hospitals, government offices. But the hardware end of it, we decided we're going to try to develop our own have a white branded POS system with digits included, which would be beneficial not only to us, but also as a licensing partner with the company and also to the users, a Target, a Walmart, a Sears. They would be able to purchase these POS systems with digits already installed in it.
All right. So do you see it being integrated into retail?
I believe so. We have a lot of interest right now. We're talking to a lot of different partners that are interested not only here in the United States, but overseas. Our company, we have an office in London, one in South America, and we're based out of Florida. So we're really busy with our focus on digits right now because of as a good friend said, it has real teeth to it. It's our main focus where digits will have more legs than anything else that we have in our company, and that's what we're going after, those partners, especially on the retail end.
Cool. Tad, you mentioned legacy assets earlier. Do you think legacy assets are going to be enough to really get MPOS going, or do we need more, build new systems? How does that look?
I think it's tough. If you talk to a normal retailer, they will say that they've spent, in some cases, 2 decades layering in business logic and transactional capability, loyalty information into the point of sale complex. Redoing that for different channels doesn't make any sense. So if you have something running at a fixed terminal, even something as simple as self-checkout, you don't want to recreate that. And then for mobile, we recreate it. For tablet, we recreate it. It doesn't make any sense. At the same time, a lot of those legacy assets were built on technology that doesn't stretch very well. Going from a fixed point of sale to a mobile device is very challenging because a fixed point of sale is designed to do one thing really fast for hundreds of people a day. And a mobile device is a consumer grade, one user, one touch point thing. Technologies are very, very different. The form factor is different. So yes, the assets are getting stretched, but in a lot of cases, I think you're seeing the breaking point of how far those things can go. So you are actually seeing the need for mobile, whether it's tablet, phablet, phone, or other form factors, driving people to look at upgrading those base technologies.
All right. Curtis, do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, Tad pretty much covered it. I mean, the wave of the future is basically integrating some sort of experience for the consumer that's going to make it not only pleasurable but easier for them to be able to make a purchase. And on that same note, as Tad mentioned, I mean, it kind of goes to the realm of, well, not only the consumer but the company themselves that are offering the service or the product wants to be able to receive this money in a nicer fashion, if you will, or a more efficient way without any problems.
And one of the dirty little secrets is retailers don't want to check you out. That is a huge cost. And in fact, after the cost of product, store labor, and a lot of that goes to checkout, is the top cost. So it's basically a way to make sure things don't get stolen and that you fulfill the conditions for sale and then get paid. If there's a cheaper, faster way to do it that holds the line or improves customer service, any retailer on the planet is going to be game for that. But it's always that balance. If you want to guarantee that everything goes through the store exactly as it should, then you force everyone to go through fixed point of sale. If you want to make sure that nobody has a bad experience, you let them steal. Sustainable business model somewhere in the middle. But it's a joke, and we've had a lot of crime jokes. Fingers, crimes. Working for a Japanese company, the idea of losing a finger as discipline, kind of happens. But there was an article in the Atlantic Monthly where they said, look, next generation shopping is going to look like shoplifting. It's going to have less friction involved. People are going to know who you are and what you're doing in a passive way, not sort of a oh, we're spying, but oh, this guy's moving through the store, doing certain activities, and they kind of gain an awareness of that. And when it comes to the checkout moment, the less that you have to say, oh, here's my stuff, let me touch it all again. Here's my payment, here's my identification. The more of that you can subtract from the transaction, the cleaner it gets and the better it gets. So these spaces, the identify someone and associate with payment and get people out of the store faster, these spaces are coming together at light speed. So a lot of exciting stuff.
Yeah, we've heard a lot at the conference here about the tipping point. Are we at the tipping point? Do you guys think that retailers are ready, and do you think consumers are ready for MPOS?
Can I take that one?
Please, go ahead.
No, retailers are not ready. But I think the fact that consumers are ready is going to drive the retailers. We've seen a power shift over the last decade where really consumers are dragging technology. I think, and I know we have some people in here that are heavily involved in EMV, and I don't want to speak ill of it, but EMV is going to be terrible. It is going to be horrible. It's going to be bad for the retailers because if you think about adding 10 seconds into a transaction, 5 seconds into a transaction, you're talking millions, sometimes tens of $millions in labor on the part of store associates, where all they're doing is waiting for somebody to dip a card or go retrieve it. That means longer lines. For the consumer, how many times are we going to leave a credit card somewhere? Or, oh, I get to the parking lot and realize I don't have my plastic. To date, my opinion on mobile wallets has been, if I'm driving to the store, I have my wallet, I have my credit card, why do I care about paying with my phone? I'm probably talking on my phone. I think the pain that's going around EMV is actually going to serve for retailers and consumers as a push point, as an inflection point around re-engaging on mobile payments. Because now it's going to be, oh yeah, bink, done. And the good news is for retailers, because they've upgraded their PIN pads for EMV, a lot of the technology that's required for contactless payment, NFC, all of these good things, is sitting in the stores waiting to be leveraged. So yeah, I think we are at an inflection point.
Curtis?
I agree. I mean, have we reached a tipping point? I think consumers are very fickle, as we all know. And the most fickle consumers on the planet are American consumers. The EMV has been working for over 10 years overseas, and we just started it here last year. Consumers, especially in the United States, like to be reinvented, I like to say. They like to be re-educated, and they need to be re-educated, especially when it comes into some sort of technology. We like to always have that new technology. We want to have the new phone. We're going to have the new card. But at the same time, the consumer is still not going to embrace EMV because of the fact that it hasn't been here for that long, and now it's being literally shoved down their throat very, very quickly. The EMV process, or those that go overseas and travel quite a bit, are already familiar with it overseas and go, oh wow, that works really well. They bring the wireless point right to your table at a restaurant, and they use your card. They never touch the card. I was just in South America 3 weeks ago, and I was really impressed at the fact that the customer service was to the point where it was just amazing, where they came over to you and they never, their thought process now is that they will never touch your card to make sure that it never gets stolen or that the information from the card is taken in any way, shape, or form. And I looked at that and I was like, wow, that's interesting. And I went to give the card and they said, no, I can't touch your card. And I asked why, and they said, because we want you to do the entire transaction. That way there is no question that your information was stolen. Your identity, your credit wasn't stolen and another purchase or another card was made with your name on it. That really impressed me, and I started thinking, how is that going to work in the United States with our consumers being as, I want it now, I want it yesterday, and I want somebody else to do it for me. So it's going to be it's going to be very interesting with the EMV products that are going to be coming in.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was in Montreal this summer and had the exact same experience in a restaurant where they're like, no, you do it. Like, me? You know, it's such a, you're right, Americans are used to
That's right.
having all that done for them. Yeah. So, oh, please, yes.
I have a question about post-card emulation, and how do you think that's going to affect the market, the MPOS market, and with EMV2, so it's really a secure element.
You said post?
HC, it's post-card emulation, it's simply tap free to
Oh, okay.
access, right? They're the restaurant mobile payment company, and basically what it does is it creates a secure element on your mobile phone. So really what happens is you don't need a POS device anymore. Your phone actually emulates a POS device and sends communication through NFC to their POS devices. So really all you have to do is update the POS system with a communication device, and it's a secure element passes it from the wallet to the phone. So it eliminates the need for a device on the merchant side.
Now, can I jump in?
Go ahead, please.
I think one challenge we have, and this is probably less true in food service, but as you get into high volume, the activity that's going on that PIN pad is not just payment. There's marketing messaging, there's sign up for things. So you're correct, you can slim down the estate of devices that are required, but it's not always just as simple as saying you can eliminate that one. Our recommendation has been you should have your payment device be your payment device, and that's it. But a lot of retailers use that real estate for other things, and so you have to find homes for that. So.
My thought on that is, again, it goes back to the security element. If your information from your credit card, all your information is on a device, a pen, a phablet, a phone, it could be taken. You're in a taxi cab and your phone dropped, and that cab driver just happens to be you left your phone open and just happened to pick it up and immediately got into all your information and went and took everything, went into your bank account. It's sitting there, and that's where I have a problem with the information being on a device to be able to do these functions, especially when you go to pay, as opposed to using your fingerprint, using a biometric of having your information already stored where it belongs, which is at the issuer, on your own profile that's away from you, and you can access that information, or your money, if you will, remotely from anywhere, because this is your MPOS, is your finger. Yes?
Curtis, how do you get over the customer experience perception on that? Because in the past we had, pay by touch was an example.
Yes.
Right, where we were asking people to pay with their fingerprint at the checkout, and people were freaked out about giving their fingerprint over to a merchant. But Apple's kind of changed that, and Android too, by saying you have control over it. It's on your device. This is yours. You're not giving it to anybody else. How do you get over that consumer?
It's a great question. We looked at that at the very beginning, and believe me, we thought about that because of the fact that, just as you said, the freak out of, I'm going to put my fingerprints somewhere, and Tom Cruise and the Mission Impossible team is going to come in, get a piece of tape, put it on that reader, lift the piece of tape, put some powder on it, and then he's going to take all my credit information and make another movie about it. And the fact that people do get freaked out, so what we developed is a handheld laser scanner that actually, it's an optical reader that actually will read the fingerprint at the checkout if you don't want to put your fingerprint on the device itself. It emulates the exact same thing as the optical reader, but in a handheld fashion, which gives the peace of mind to the customer that, yes, this is a lot easier. You're not getting my fingerprint physically, you're getting it virtually. That's one of the ways that we address that issue. At the same time, again, it's re-education of the public. The public is always going to, anything new, they're going to be, oh, wait a minute, this is kind of freaky. This is all 1984. This is, really futuristic stuff that we used to see in Star Trek movies. and now it's real. And a lot of people will have a problem with that, but I think a lot of the people that are into it and that are following the security and the encryption will appreciate it in the long run.
And just to pile on there, I don't worry about Tom Cruise taking my identity, but the fact that you look like him, you're more at risk. Thinking outside the U.S. for a minute, though, there are other areas, and just I happen to know a bit about Japan based on our ownership structure, where there is more of a willingness to part with information about yourself, including fairly detailed information, as long as you think it's secure and you're getting some value for it. So Toshiba has technology that's around image recognition or retina scans and iris scans, and you're literally letting somebody have an idea of something that's incredibly private for you, and also if you screw up an iris scan, you could blind somebody. It's a non-trivial thing, but it gets general consumer adoption. Not anywhere close to 100%, but enough where the population is willing to say, you know what, we'll try this. As long as there's value for it, yeah, I think people are willing to do it. In the U.S., we tend to be a little bit of an outlier. We like having false security about privacy, where we think, oh, nobody's tracking me. Right. We're all totally private in here. But it's those overt acts of being scanned or being tracked that we tend to have a little more of a problem with. Interesting trends when you get into, sort of the millennial and younger generation where some of that's breaking down. But I think right now we do tend to have that individualistic ethos where we don't like to be tracked, don't like to be scanned, that kind of stuff.
It's interesting you talk about what might tip that decision is the value that someone can get out of giving up some of their personal information. At Credit Union Times, we published a story not long ago reporting a survey in which 1 in 4 banking customers said they would give up a DNA sample to their bank if it would guarantee that their account would be safe and their information would be safe, which we all joked about, opening deposit at that point, but
Right.
But it's, that was kind of interesting. Like, we were surprised at how many people, and it skewed young, right? The younger respondents were more likely to say that they would be willing to do that. So that's kind of interesting. So let's talk about security then.
I think we have a question.
Oh, let's not.
Kind of on that topic, I want to go back to something that Tad mentioned. I work for Target, a food retailer. I know that Walmart had a mobile basket, or I'll call it a customer-managed basket concept, where you could check out on your own phone and basically manage that entire checkout process yourself. And they abandoned it because of the incidents of theft. And I wondered, based on the model of a waiter coming over and making you responsible for the entire payment process, if that guest-managed experience didn't represent something about, but it occurred to me that it was kind of like Napster, where because free music was out there, there wasn't the concept that you were stealing, and that taking away that responsibility from the consumer making that payment doesn't also have that sort of same effect. I just was curious if you'd comment on that.
It's an interesting question. We could spend a lot of time on it, but I'll try and give a sort of a Twitter version of an answer. Customers are generally more honest than employees. So if you look at shrink in a store, purposeful theft is usually not your customers. It's your associates who know how they know how to do the pass-throughs and the pass-arounds. Put the finger key here, so if when I swipe it, the scanner beeps, it doesn't record a price. Like they know how to play that game. Where consumers inadvertently steal or cause shrink is accidental. Oh, I left a case of water at the bottom of the basket. I fully intended to pay for it. I just, I had 3 kids running around, so I messed up. Or I scanned and something beeped, so I assumed I was okay, didn't notice that it didn't charge me correctly. Mobile adds a lot of complexity to that because you've got, at least for checkout and self-checkout, you've got a certain sense of, hey, this is the space where you do this activity. When you push that back into the aisles, you lose that sense of, oh, here's where you do it. You also lose the ability to audit very easily. And so a lot with mobile point of sale, what a lot of people are finding out is, yeah, you slim down the front end of the process, but you've got to get smarter about how you audit your customers. And you don't ever treat all your customers the same. You know, if somebody has a television in their order, yeah, you're going to check that out in the name of customer service. If you have a loyalty program and somebody's had 3 mistakes over the last 3 orders, yeah, you're going to check them out. So it raises a lot of complex and interesting questions. So, but we can dig more deeply on that.
I just always found it amazing to me when I go to the store, and again, my brain never shuts off, but I always, as Tad said, consumers are arguably pretty honest. I always found it amazing that the shopping carts themselves haven't evolved into a real, true global payment operating system. An MPOS, there it is. It's in the cart itself, right with a tab. The person, myself, I put things in, it automatically scans it, puts it in the cart. You just walk out because it's in the cart and it's already paid for through the cart itself to the Target, to the Walmart, as you're leaving the door.
Now here's the irony. People have tried that, but they put so much technology on the carts that the carts end up getting stolen. So you solved one challenge, loss prevention, but created another target of opportunity.
We make it as cheap as possible. I mean, with the technology that we have now, and if it's a pad that's going to get stolen, you make it as minimalistic as possible, where it's basically beaming the information to the POS system from the store itself, where it's actually taking the checkout register and adding it to the cart with a sensor around the cart in the plastic portion of the cart. As something comes in, it's being beamed from every direction in the cart. So there's really no way to put something in there unless it's already seen by the cart itself or by the store. If you go through and beep, 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 all the lights up, either she's backing up or she stole something. and then that's where loss prevention comes in. But I just always found it amazing that nobody has come up with anything, a simpler plan for consumers to do exactly that function. To be able to feel that they can actually, they're walking out with something, but they already paid for it.
Part of the challenge is you need to have a sensor at item level. And the best technology for that right now is RFID.
Exactly.
It's great if you're in apparel. You know, a $100 sweater, you can stick a 25-cent tag on there. But if you're selling a $2 can of beans and making 4 cents on it, until you can get something that's printed in the package and has enough information content to trigger a scan, you still got to challenge it.
I think
the tech's getting better.
It is getting better, and I can visualize in the future using digits on those pads themselves to where you go to check out, you just press your fingerprint and you're done. It automatically, you've just paid for everything in that cart, and it's already been gone into the store's POS system, and you walk to your car and you load your car up with your groceries, and life is good. You know, you just completely eliminated at least 20 minutes of wasted time waiting in the checkout line.
After you make your first billion on digits, we'll start in on parts.
There you go.
Well, we're about out of time. Are there any more questions from the audience? No? Do we have time for one more question, or are we?
Yes.
All right. So let's talk best practices. Who out there is doing MPOS well? Besides Toshiba.
We're not. We give technology to retailers. And
Yeah.
That's an important thing. Retailers are the ones that implement and do this technology.
All right.
So, and the technology is not even the most interesting part. It's the process you put around it. It's
Yeah,
easy to
you
say.
mentioned that.
Apple does a good job, but when you're selling one item, every transaction, it's real simple to scan that kind of stuff. Higher volume, Home Depot, the first round of that was not so great, but they've learned a lot. They've gotten smarter about the functionality they have on their smartphones. I think they're doing a good job. In general, though, it's confined to specialty and food service where you've got a lot of mobility on the part of associates. You know exactly who you're serving and where they are. In a high volume retail environment, there's not a lot of people doing it well. There's a huge amount of experimentation. But to point to someone and say, yeah, that's best practice. Last
Not
thing
even
I would
there
say
yet.
is if you want to see it done well, go to Europe. Europe is 5 years ahead of us, and it has almost nothing to do with technology, and it's everything to do with the process and consumer adoption.
I really, truly believe that the MPOS is it is at a tipping point, to the sense that it's being, as Tad said, experimented on with the consumers, but the one that's going to win is the one that gives the best customer relationship. That company or that MPOS that gives the best customer service is the one that's going to win. If you put the ball in the court of the consumer, that's the company that's going to win. It's like the old adage of the restaurant business. I mean, the 3 rules of the restaurant business. You serve a good drink, a good stiff drink, a good pour. You have recognition. If you walk in that door and they recognize you by name, and you will be back at that place 3 or 4 times, no matter how bad it is. And the food quality and the portion is awesome. Those are those 3 rules. Apply those same rules to MPOS and the customer relationship through customer service. Those are the MPOS companies that are going to win.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for a very engaging panel. This was a lot of fun, and thanks everyone for attending. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Great.
Thank you.